Hi, everyone. Welcome to eLearnChat, where you always learn something new. I'm joined today by my good friend and co-host, Leslie Price, coming to us from just outside of London, though she is Scottish. And she's with www.learnappeal.org.uk. You can also get there
Correct.
by learnappeal.com. It'll redirect. Take a look at the website. They do great work. It's a wonderful charity and expanding all over the place. Eventually, they'll make it to where you are, maybe. So, running the video switcher and mixer, we've got Hal Muliani. We've got a great guest today, second visit on the show. Alessio Artuffo will be on in a moment. He's the CRO for Docebo. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation at www.relate.com, your training and video partner.
Hello, I'm Peter Baker. Please visit voiceovermasterclass.com to see details of the training courses I have on offer for new and existing voice talents to further their career by enhancing voice and technical skills, as well as essential marketing tips.
And we are back, and there in that center position of power, we've got Alessio again, Alessio Artuffo. How are you, Alessio?
I'm doing just great. Thank you, Rick, for having me.
You guys are doing
Hiya.
all sorts of new things. Well, first of all, a huge congratulations on your new baby Bambino, your boy. Um, about two,
Thank
three
you
months
so
old
much.
now?
He's 7 weeks old.
7 weeks. Wow. You know what? Before you know it, they'll be in high school and you'll go, "Hi, Mamma Mia." But that's a whole nother problem for later. But congratulations. Have fun. That's all you can say. Have fun. When they grow up, it's really fun watching it. And then you guys did an IPO not long ago.
We did. We did. We launched our IPO in October of last year. It was October 2019. Successful in the Canadian Stock Exchange.
Hmm.
And yeah, we're very proud of it, of course. And that's just the beginning of a much longer journey ahead of us.
No, that's great.
So for people in the UK, can you explain what IPO is?
Sure thing. Yes, it's initial public offering. So we have effectively become a public company, and our stock is now trading in the TSX Toronto Stock Exchange.
Okay, so you're listed on the stock exchange.
We are listed in Toronto Stock Exchange. That is correct. DCBO.
Yeah.
Now, last time you were on, you were talking a lot about how artificial intelligence and AI is playing a big part in Docebo. Anything change with that? Are you still continuing that research and development? I think you've got programmers that are doing this, researchers working on it. It's an interesting part of the business. And how's that working out?
The investment in AI remains at the core of our technology, Rick. When you think AI, immediately you think of enhanced intelligence, making a better decision, using and leveraging the critical component called data. And that is why data is the key word here. It takes a while for AI algorithms to become more accurate, refined, and therefore delivering value. At this point, we have a few core features in our product that are fully AI powered. As we continue to, I would say, chew over data and understand correlations of usage, our engine learns every day
Mm-hmm.
and makes better recommendations, whether it's in our AI chat featured bot or recommendation engine. And that investment is very strong, and we continue to to really put our best resources in it.
So in the way it works, it sounds like when people are looking for something, or as they take things, the chat bots or the AI part of it recommends other things to take in the curriculum or things that may fit their needs. It figures it out based on their usage, correct?
There's that, and it also helps you understanding based on usage behaviors who is actually likely to have interest in a certain type of content, helping learning and development, understanding who in the organization would be better suited or have an interest in actually using or going through certain type of content. That's one, however, of the several areas in which AI is takes a strong input in Docebo features.
Because I mean, AI is very, very complex. I know that, you know, I've got quite a few friends in the UK, including Donald Clark, who is very into AI in a lot. I don't know, you probably know Donald. If you don't know him, you'll have heard of him. I think most people have. And I know it's something that really interests him, but he always says you've just got to make sure that you actually do it properly, because if you get it wrong, if you actually don't do it right, it you know, the results may actually be worse than you thought they were going to be.
Yeah. No, definitely
Is that fair? Is that a fair comment?
It's a great comment, and I think it's also why it takes a while to launch to market full AI powered technology, because the degree of research and development is one that requires testing and requires a true affirmation of the value of such feature rather than just pushing it out. And you know, there's some funny stories out there of AI chatbots that provide silly responses to basic questions. And you know, you don't want that, especially in a professional organization, professional setup. So yeah, there's a lot of work behind those algorithms for sure.
Yeah.
What do you see as one of the biggest?
That's exactly what Donald says. That's exactly what Donald says. He just says, you know, it doesn't come off the back of a lorry. There's actually a lot of work that goes into this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of hype and there's a lot of reality, and both are valid. And I don't know how much AI is being even used in the e-learning world right now. Not as much as probably should be, but you folks have definitely put a big investment into that from things I've read and heard and things you've also told us, which is exciting to see, you know, where it all winds up and how you benefit from it in the long run. What do you see as one of the challenges right now in the learning industry, in the e-learning industry, digital learning?
There's many, Rick. I'd say one of the challenges that we're focusing on and continues to be primary concern of the companies that we work with is how do we make the learner experience more pleasant and more immediate while maintaining good flexibility in the actual product, in the learning technology that we use. What I mean by that is, how do we make learning part of the journey of the employee or customer of any organization, and give them the ability, give learners the opportunity to go beyond pure learning consumption. So, you know, when you think of LMS, and we all have a very clear knowledge of what an LMS does. In principle, an LMS would allow you to go through content and the LMS would enable the tracking of the learner experience, and an administrator would then be able to report upon that tracking. And again, to the extent that that's a stigma of LMS, it's a lot of compliance content and very standardized unidirectional approach. Now, newer generations don't love that. They don't necessarily care too much, nor will, and if they will, likely it is that they fake the behavior to go through extensive amounts of content for, say, an hour, and sure thing we will observe completion data. These are some metrics that used to be popular, but those will not tell us how engaged those people are. So the one thing that we're trying to understand and reflect in Docebo is, how do we actually create a product that does allow companies to run those same programs, but do also allow them to engage the audience by giving the audience an actual role in the overall learning and development strategy of the company? How do we give them the power of actually being content experts, content contributors, and turn the audience in a leverage of knowledge rather than just a destination to whom pushing some SCORM packages?
It's interesting. When you started talking there, you mentioned that about learning being pleasant, right? Well, I remember being when I was at school, and very often the learning that was just pleasant wasn't actually challenging. And the fact that it wasn't challenging, almost, it wasn't that it wasn't fun. It just became, oh yeah, this is pleasant, this is boring, here we go again. And the way that my brain worked when I was young, I constantly wanted to be challenged. But the rate at which I am challenged as a person was maybe different than the speed and the rate of other kids in the class, because different people in the classes had different abilities. And do you think that AI is something that can actually then help tailor learning to people who have different abilities? So somebody who is very quick, who is very bright, who needs to be moved on to be challenged, can be taken on a different route from somebody who needs a lot of reinforcement. I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
It's an awesome question, and it really applies to, I think, a challenge that most organizations have. Because in every organization, you'll have different cohorts of learners that like to learn in different ways. And some like that challenge, and others don't necessarily want it or need it or respond well to it. And so being able to offer a learning experience that is varied on a core basis, depending on learning styles, is a tremendous asset. Look, recently we've introduced a capability, and I don't particularly like to talk about feature per se, and the last thing I want to do today, guys, is any sort of thing that could resemble a sales pitch. But one thing that we've done, we've introduced recently, was how do we actually allow people that have a certain expertise or experience in their life to receive content that actually speaks to those areas that they want to get better at, and where that content doesn't have to be produced by their learning and development organization, but can be aggregated from multiple sources, right? Like, there's so much good content out there. It's just hard to navigate it as part of a unified and consistent learning experience.
Yeah.
So we've created this call it Discover as part of our Discover coach and share module. And by saying I'm really interested in getting better at public speaking, right? My company may not care about that. Like the company that has enrolled in the LMS may not even talk about public speaking. My learning and development team may have zero plans to train me on public speaking. They have other plans. They're going to train me in the product, compliance, privacy, doesn't matter. But I, as a learner, can say, I want to learn about public speaking. And so now I start receiving content that matters for me, and I feel engaged and challenged in the areas that I care for. It doesn't disregard what the company wants out of me, but it's a place where I actually care to go rather than a place where I'm told to go. And that difference between caring and being told is a very important place to.
No, I totally agree, because you're talking there about public speaking, but public speaking actually also involves speaking to people in teams, speaking to your customers when you meet them, speaking to other people in the organization. And an awful lot of people don't realize that as actually being public speaking.
Exactly. 100%. So, yeah, I believe there's opportunity everywhere. I think we've opened the doors to a complete revolution in the era of the way a learning platform can solve the problems and needs of the evolving generations. And I think we're just at the beginning of it, Rick, Leslie. Honestly, I would love in a way to share with you openly all the things that we're planning on doing at Docebo, though most of them are highly confidential and I can't. But I can tell you that we look at learning as a whole, and there are opportunities that go well beyond what the market presently addresses.
Well, it's also interesting because when it comes down to it, an LMS is a database. You have a lot of data. And a lot of people don't use the LMS for anything good. They launch, they complete, they're done. And I go, what about the analysis? What about trying to figure out if production or performance is improved? And they look at you like, no, we just complied. That's all we care about. No. And so they miss out on what an LMS can do. And a lot of them don't do very much when it comes to reporting or analysis. So I think that puts you in definitely a small category of LMSs that go way beyond what the average LMS does. All of a sudden, in the last 5 years, there's a ton of new LMSs, of which most are very simple. They don't do that much. And that solves the need of companies that don't care that much about what they do. But when you start looking at the real potential of an LMS and you start looking at what you're talking about, all of a sudden, what a difference. Now you're using data to not only show what you're doing, but to help predict where you're going. And that's part of things that aren't talked about in LMS as much. The predictability. What are we seeing? What can we forecast for the future in terms of our staff, our capabilities, our performance, our productivity? That's what I like about what I'm hearing about what Docebo has been doing and the way you approach it. I like that a lot because, again, data for data's sake means nothing. It's what you do with the data.
Yeah, and the data, Rick, I fully agree with all of that. And it's actually a very exciting topic, the one of data analysis when it comes to, there's two big segments of data that we need to keep in mind. I think one is analyzing learning behavior almost in an analytical manner, as if we were running a business intelligence on the behaviors of learners, right, to the extent of. But then there's also what I heard you making a reference to, which is, has any of the experiences that you had in the system made an impact on you as a learner? And if it has, for how long? Like, what are you what do you even remember about content A, B, C, D that you underwent? And did it help you? So people may think, well, simple, use some surveys, but it goes beyond that. And it's a lifelong learning process, right? So we want to make sure that whatever learning opportunity we give to people, not only we get feedback, but also that feedback can be used to then improve the way we provide content or learning opportunities as a whole. The learning impact and the learning analysis are tremendous areas of improvement. And there are some companies that are doing some niche work that is really cool in that area.
Yep.
And I give them a lot of kudos for doing that. I believe that there is an opportunity for us to extend that learning experience beyond LMS. And
Well, it's funny because the LMSs, today LMSs get blamed for everything. And the LMS is not designing the content. That's the problem. They get blamed for the content that other people design. And that's just, I always say, no, it's not your LMS that's the problem, it's your content. And they look at you like, but the content's on the LMS. And then they separate the content from the structure of what launches it and does other things with it. If you have lousy content, the LMS isn't going to help you that much. And people are slowly starting to go, it's not the LMS, it's the content. And it's slow because, we've all been working on LMSs for a long time. And people are just now starting to go, it's not the LMS. No, it's the content.
And also, Rick, bring in people into the equation because it also depends what your HR or your training, your learning and development people or your manager has told you that you've got to go and learn.
Right.
So it's not just the way the content is written or the way it's on the LMS. You're also relying on instruction from the human beings that are there saying, and you haven't ticked this box. You need to go and do tick, 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 tick.
Yep.
And that's not the technology.
No.
That's back down to the people.
Yeah, and it's funny because, if you're watching the show right now, you're out there and you have an LMS you don't like, that's fair. But why don't you like it? Is it a problem with the LMS or is it the content? And many times when we talk to people, it's the content. And the LMSs and then they switch LMSs and they go to a different one and they go, it's no better. It's your content's still the same. And it's funny because that's what we see happening all the time. The LMS is getting blamed for bad content. And when you're talking, Alessio, about all the things that you're including in Docebo, that's a lot of things that could really help a company if they start thinking of the LMS not only as launching courses, but as a platform for analysis, for performance, for productivity. And they start thinking of ways to redesign content based on capabilities that are really beyond content development. And
Rick, I think it's an interesting topic, the one of content intersection, content authoring intersection with learning platforms, and I like to use the word learning platform because I do think it separates those LMSs that are more traditional in approach and perhaps more limited in features from those products that actually aim at new heights. And here's the way I see the problem of content. I agree with you. There's a complacency towards instructional models that are 20 years old. Yeah. And it's nobody's fault. I think there's very reputable companies out there that have created content that uses the same instructional templates for decades, and no wonder people find them obnoxious. And it's not the learner to blame if those templates haven't been refreshed in 10 or so years. But certainly there's something to be said about the fact that technologies, AI, for example, gives us the opportunity to actually streamline the content production process and perhaps allow smarter content creation. And there's folks at companies like Article and others that do tremendous work, and I really think there are some progressive companies out there in the world of content that are doing really well. Mm-hmm. But the issue that I see is with content is practically speaking one, and it's called time to market. By the time a lot of content is created, the matter in itself is already obsolete. Mm-hmm. And the cost of regular standardized content production processes that start from course outline, through storyboarding, through assets management, through assets creation, definition, assembly, content packaging, workflows, review, metadata, and all of that. Well, that is a long process and in itself is outdated. But the new technologies help us. We can shorten that cycle from months of production to minutes. And so the way I think about that is not only the content these days is unpleasant because it's archaic in the way it's presented, it also requires a refresh on a continuous basis. And there's not a lot out there that allows to do that in a systematic manner. The way we think about it is perhaps as an area of opportunity that we're going to be capturing.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. It is interesting how things are progressing because for a while the LMSs just went nowhere. And now, things you're doing, for example, are changing the way I think people are perceiving the LMS as, oh, wait a minute. Like you said, it's a learning platform. It's not just, here, launch it, record it, you're done. Have a good time. And I know a lot of companies, some of them are very large, who have LMSs. Some of them are very expensive. And they launch, record, track, and that's it. They don't analyze. And you just go, oh. So they have tons of data with absolutely no analysis. Because in essence, here's an old term that people aren't using as much anymore, but it's still viable. An LMS is a sort of data warehouse. And if you use your data warehousing correctly, you can get a lot of interesting data about a lot of different trends within your company, not only from a revenue perspective, but from productivity, performance, blah, blah, blah. And, these people are spending all this money and they're not using it. And you just shake your head and go, And it's gotten worse, I think, throughout the years. I think about 20 years ago, people were doing more analysis than they are today. And slowly but surely, I think the pendulum is, switching back to going, okay, we need more analysis. Why are we doing this? We have all this data we capture, but we're not using it to really try to figure anything out. And then when they do, or they see something that's more worthwhile, all of a sudden the eyes open up. I didn't know really this is what we're doing. I didn't know that. You mean we've lost this much or we've gained this much and we didn't know.
Rick, the other thing
is bliss.
I'm sorry, Leslie?
Ignorance is bliss.
Is bliss. Yeah.
Leslie, Rick, I think another trend that we have not spoken about today, but matters in the context of this, because when you use this analogy of LMS being a data warehouse, Rick, for the most part, it's very true that these days that's a fact. I'd say, though, there's a trend, which at least we're seeing day in, day out, to where the data warehouse is not anymore a data warehouse for the employees only, but it's a data warehouse and becomes way more than a data warehouse for our market.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, it is material, the trend in organizations, from the most young ones in tenure to the more traditional companies that are actually viewing learning not as that internal data warehouse, but as a vehicle to actually better the relations and the maintenance with their customers or partners or agents on the field or members of their association. And I think that is relatively new. Everybody talks about extended enterprise. as a concept, but I think it's really healthy for the LMS industry because it's pushing the boundaries of what actual learning should accomplish and enable companies to do. It's pushing the envelope beyond what is just for the internal workforce to more service that serves a way broader purpose. I don't know what your thoughts are, Leslie, Rick. I'd love to see what your perspective is on it.
What you seem to be talking about is not so much the content, whether that be the content of the e-learning or the content of the data, but the context of what it should be used in. And I've always said that it's not the content that's king, it's the context. And unless you actually put things in the right context, it doesn't work. And what people very often don't realize is you can have lots and lots of data, but if you take it out of context, it actually can mean something totally and utterly different. And you do that without even realizing it.
Yep. 100%.
It's fun. And with that, we are pretty much out of time. Alessio, always a pleasure to have you on and share your thoughts and ideas. You guys are at pretty much the forefront of what's happening, and that's what makes it fun, because you're seeing it, and you see it more than most people do because you're right there in the trenches selling to markets that are somewhat jaded. I think you probably run into that a lot. People going, all right, what are you going to sell me? But I've heard nothing but good about Docebo from different people. I've been to trade shows and I talked to them like, what do you think of Docebo? They go, oh, well, that's really a good. Yeah. So you're getting, I think the message you guys are putting out is a good one. And the capabilities of what you're investing in, like you said, it's just the beginning of it. And so it's going to be interesting to see, in the near future, where you go with all that. And I think as people get more into the analysis and the predictability and everything else, finite forecasting of what could happen, people are going to start looking at the LMSs not as just, like you said, a data warehouse or a repository, but rather part of the analysis function for sales, for production, for everything else.
Yeah, corporate strategy as a whole. Yep. Absolutely.
And that's exciting. To see that's exciting because now you're leveraging information and data and people. Now you have an idea of what you're really doing in your company. And a lot of companies kind of have an idea, but a lot don't. And then some of these are very large companies. And so it's nice to see that the industry is kind of making a full turn around. I wouldn't say a full 360. I think we're going to a 180, something different. And that's exciting. That's fun.
Yeah, but we have a responsibility as the learning players to push the envelope every day and not allow complacency to exist, right? And that's what we try to do every day. That's why we're here.
That's great. Well, Alessio, glad you could come on today and share some of that. Again, congratulations on your new bambino. It's a wonderful thing. And when are you going to start teaching him AI programming?
Oh, very soon.
Soon.
right
Books
now.
First,
Books first, yeah.
All you want is mommy right now.
Yeah.
Well, today, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but today in the UK, it's World Book Day.
Oh, interesting.
So my daughter took the grandson into the school. My daughter's a teacher, Alessio. So my daughter's a teacher. And she's obviously on maternity leave, but she took the grandson into school today to meet the other teachers and meet all the children wearing a T-shirt saying "The Very Hungry Caterpillar." And that was the book that he took with him, The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Nice.
Fun. That's great. Well, again, Alessio, good to see you again. Best of success with Docebo and everything you guys are doing, and love to have you back on and report back on all the things you guys are doing, finding out about. Yeah, you guys are doing exciting things. And
Leslie, it's so good. So good being here with you, Rick. Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure every time.
Our pleasure and honor. And for all you folks watching, if you want to learn more about Docebo, There'll be information below so you can contact them and take a look what they're doing. It's actually pretty interesting. We saw some of what you were doing at the last DevLearn show. Looked really good. It's pretty impressive, and there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement there. So I think, are you folks at Learning Solutions? I think in a little bit later this month.
I am 99% positive that we will be. Yes,
Okay.
we are so many shows that I lost track, Rick.
Yep, that sounds good. So take a look at them at Learning Solutions. That's the next big show coming up, and we will see you next week. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you. Bye, Alessio.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Here.